The grand chamber of the Galactic Council gleamed with light from 1,000 stars. Ships floated outside the massive windows representing hundreds of alien races. Inside, delegates sat in curved rows, their forms ranging from insectoid to gaseous to crystalline. At the center stood Ambassador Sarah Chen, the human representative, her gray suit looking plain among the colorful displays of alien fashion. She had come to make one final plea. Earth was about to be taken from humanity, annexed by the Council for what they called proper development. Sarah knew what that meant. Humans would become second-class citizens on their own world. The Corinthian Council leader raised one of his forearms. His scales glittered blue in the light. He spoke with the voice of someone bored by an old argument. Ambassador Chen, we have heard your protests for 3 cycles now. Your people claim ancient glories, yes? Tales of gods and monsters? He made a sound like grinding rocks, which his species used for laughter. Such primitive beliefs have no place in galactic civilization. Around the chamber, other delegates joined in the mocking sounds. The Talari hierarchy representative, a being of pure energy contained in a crystal form, pulsed with amused colors. The Vex Collective's hive mind speaker clicked its mandibles in what passed for laughter among their kind. Sarah felt heat rise to her face, but she kept her voice steady. What you call myths are historical records. Our stories speak of beings with incredible power, dragons that breathed fire, gods who commanded lightning, demons who walked between worlds. These were not fantasies. They were warnings. Warnings? The Corinthian leader leaned forward. Of what, imaginary creatures? Ambassador, your species has been part of the galactic community for 200 years. In all that time, you have shown us nothing but backwards thinking and stubborn attachment to fairy tales. You have no proof of these ancient powers, no artifacts, no technology beyond what you learned from us. Sarah pulled out a data tablet. I have compiled evidence from archaeological sites across Earth, structures that should not exist with primitive tools, texts that describe technologies beyond our current capabilities, genetic markers in human DNA that suggest we were once far more advanced. The council leader waved dismissively. Speculation and hope, nothing more. The vote has been cast. Earth will be annexed in 30 standard days. Your species will be relocated to controlled habitation zones while we properly develop your world. This discussion is over. Sarah stood silent for a moment. Then she spoke, her voice quiet but clear. You think you know humanity. You think we are weak because we have no grand fleets. You think we are stupid because we remember our past through stories. But our ancestors buried something in those stories. They left us warnings for a reason. She looked directly at the Corinthian. Pray we never remember why. The chamber erupted in derisive sounds again. Sarah turned and walked toward the exit, her footsteps echoing in the vast space. Behind her, the delegates continued their mockery, already discussing how to divide Earth's resources. None of them noticed the readings on their instruments. Deep in space, far beyond the edge of known territory, monitoring stations had begun detecting something strange. The void between stars, the empty darkness that ships traveled through, was changing. Sensors showed impossible data. Reality itself was beginning to crack. A junior technician on a remote station stared at her screen. The void was showing colors that should not exist. Wavelengths that did not match any known phenomenon. She reached for the communication panel, hands shaking. This is Outpost 773. We have a situation. The void is shimmering. Her supervisor came over, looked at the readings and felt his blood run cold. Get this to command, now! The message went out, bouncing from relay to relay across the galaxy. But by the time it reached anyone who might care, it was too late. The shimmer was spreading, growing, pulsing with colors that hurt to look at. On Earth, strange things were happening. People woke from nightmares, all dreaming the same symbols. Ancient languages that no one had spoken in thousands of years. Geometric patterns that seemed to twist the mind. Across the world, billions of humans shared the same visions. Sarah returned to Earth that night. She went to her apartment in Geneva and collapsed on her couch, exhausted from the fight she had lost. Her tablet buzzed with messages. Colleagues offering sympathy, friends asking what would happen next. She ignored them all. Then she received a call from someone she had not heard from in years. Dr. Marcus Webb, a xenoarchaeologist who studied human ruins. His face on the screen looked pale and excited at the same time. Sarah, you need to come to Egypt. Now. We found something under the Sphinx. Something that should not be possible. She sat up straight. What did you find? Marcus looked over his shoulder, then back at the screen. A chamber, full of technology. Sarah, it is not alien tech. It is not from any known civilization. The symbols on the walls match the dreams people are having. And it just turned itself on. Sarah arrived in Egypt 12 hours later. The dig site near the Sphinx was lit by harsh floodlights, turning night into day. Security barriers kept curious crowds away, but she could see the people gathered outside, their faces filled with fear and wonder. Marcus met her at the entrance to the newly discovered chamber. He looked like he had not slept in days. His hands trembled as he handed her a protective suit. You need to see this yourself. Words cannot describe it. They descended through ancient stone passages that had been hidden for thousands of years. The walls glowed with faint blue light that seemed to pulse like a heartbeat. Sarah touched the stone and felt warmth beneath her fingers. The chamber at the bottom was enormous. Technology covered every surface, but it was unlike anything in the Galactic database. Crystalline structures grew from the floor like trees. Holographic displays flickered in languages Sarah recognized from ancient Earth texts. Proto-Indo-European, Ancient Sumerian, Sanskrit. Languages that should have been dead for millennia. In the center of the chamber stood a projection, a hologram of a human figure, but something was different about it. The figure seemed to exist in too many dimensions at once. When Sarah looked directly at it, her eyes hurt. The hologram spoke. Its voice resonated in a way that bypassed her ears and spoke directly to her mind. The compact is broken. The oath fulfilled. We return. Sarah stepped closer, her heart pounding. Who are you? What compact? The hologram did not respond. It simply repeated the message again and again. Then it vanished, leaving behind a data core that pulsed with light. Marcus moved to examine it, his instruments going wild with readings. This technology is beyond anything we have, Marcus said, his voice filled with awe. It makes Galactic Council tech look primitive. Sarah, if this is human in origin, then our ancestors were not just advanced. They were godlike. Reports came in from around the world. Every ancient site was activating. Stonehenge hummed with power. The pyramids of Giza emitted frequencies that made instruments malfunction. Temples in India, Peru, China, and Easter Island all began to glow with the same blue light. The dreams intensified. Now it was not just symbols. People saw visions of massive ships, beings of light and shadow, creatures that defied physics, warriors in armor that seemed to be made of starlight. Everyone who slept that night witnessed the same impossible things. Meanwhile, in deep space, the shimmer grew worse. The void between stars no longer looked empty. Colors swirled in the darkness, purple and gold and silver that hurt to see. Reality itself seemed to be tearing open. Ships that passed through the affected regions reported system failures. Crews experienced shared hallucinations. Some vessels simply vanished, their last transmissions filled with descriptions of things that should not exist. The Galactic Council finally took notice. They sent science vessels to investigate. The ships arrived at the edge of the shimmer and deployed sensors. What they recorded made no sense. The readings showed tears in space-time itself, doorways opening from somewhere outside normal reality. The Corinthian Council leader called an emergency session. He looked far less confident than he had days before. We have confirmation of a large-scale spatial anomaly. Multiple breaches detected across 1,000 light-years. The phenomenon appears to be centered on human space. A delegate from the Vex Collective spoke up, its voice sharp with fear. Could this be a weapon? Are the humans responsible? We have no evidence of that, the Corinthian replied. But we cannot rule it out. I recommend we accelerate the annexation schedule. We should secure Earth immediately. The vote passed quickly. Fear made the Council act fast. A war fleet was assembled, 10,000 ships strong. The largest military force in galactic history. They set course for Earth, intending to take the human homeworld by force. Back in Egypt, Sarah watched the news with growing dread. Marcus stood beside her, his face pale. They are coming. They think we are behind this. Sarah looked at the data core they had recovered from the chamber. It pulsed with light, brighter now than before. Maybe we are, just not the way they think. That night, the shimmer reached its peak. Across the galaxy, observers watched as the void tore open in spectacular fashion. Not one breach, but hundreds. Thousands. All along the edges of human territory. And through those tears, something began to emerge. Vast shapes moving in the darkness. Ships, but like no ships anyone had ever seen. Some looked like ancient sailing vessels, impossibly large and made of metals that should not exist. Others seemed to be living creatures, breathing and moving through space without any visible means of propulsion. A transmission came through on every frequency at once. A voice that sounded like thunder and bells and songs all at the same time. It spoke in a language that every species somehow understood. We have returned. Earth orbit became a show of the impossible. The massive shapes that emerged from the void shimmers took form as they approached the solar system. Sarah watched from the observation deck of Earth's orbital defense station, her breath caught in her throat. The first vessel looked like a Norse longship, but it was massive, beyond imagination. Carved from some dark metal that seemed to absorb light, it stretched for miles. Shields hung along its sides, each one big enough to land a city on. At its prow stood a figure wreathed in lightning. Behind it came ships of living flame. They moved like birds, their wings spread wide, burning with colors that should not exist in nature. Inside each one, Sarah could see figures of pure light. Beautiful and terrible at the same time. Then came the creatures. Dragons, but not the fantasy creatures from children's stories. These were massive beings that moved through the void of space as easily as fish through water. Their scales reflected starlight. Their eyes glowed with intelligence far beyond animal cunning. Some breathed fire that burned in vacuum. Others seemed to be made of shadow and nightmare. The lead ship came to rest in high orbit. A transmission came through, audio only. The voice that spoke was deep and resonant, filled with power that made the station's walls vibrate. I am Odin All-Father, first commander of the Terra Expeditionary Host. We have come at the appointed hour, as was sworn. Where stands the Council of Earth? Sarah grabbed the communication panel with shaking hands. This is Ambassador Sarah Chen of the United Earth Government. We have no council. What appointed hour? What oath? There was a pause. When Odin spoke again, his voice carried confusion. You do not remember? The compact was clear. When humanity faces extinction, when the void shimmers return, we would answer the call. We did not call, Sarah said. We do not know what you are talking about. Another pause. Then a different voice joined the transmission. This one sounded like music and thunder mixed together. They truly do not remember, All-Father. The memory locks worked perfectly. 50,000 years, and the truth was buried completely. 50,000 years. The number hit Sarah like a physical blow. What truth? Who are you? The musical voice replied. I am called Athena, though I have had many names. We are the ones you called gods. We are the ones you called angels and demons and spirits. We are the protectors and weapons of the First Empire. The empire humanity built when they ruled the stars. Marcus was in the control room with her now, having rushed over when the reports came in. He pulled up data on his tablet, his hands flying across the screen. Sarah, I am finding references. Ancient texts that talk about an age before ages. A time when humans were not just travelers among the stars, but creators of them. Before Sarah could respond, alarms blared throughout the station. The Galactic Council fleet had arrived. 10,000 warships dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the solar system. They formed up in battle formation, their weapons charging with enough power to destroy planets. The Corinthian Council leader's voice came over the general broadcast. Attention, Earth, you will stand down immediately. These unknown vessels will surrender or be destroyed. You have violated galactic law by developing prohibited weapons technology. Odin's laugh was like thunder rolling across mountains. Prohibited weapons? Child, we are not weapons. We are warriors. There is a difference. Last warning, the Corinthian said. Surrender or face destruction. Sarah tried to intervene. Please do not attack. We can explain. We can negotiate, but it was too late. The Council fleet opened fire. Thousands of energy beams lanced through space, enough firepower to vaporize moons. The light was blinding, turning the darkness of space into day. What happened next would be recorded in every history text for the next 1,000 years. The mythological fleet did not dodge. They did not raise shields. They simply existed, and the weapons fire meant nothing. Energy beams hit the Norse ship and were absorbed into the dark metal, making it glow with power. The fire ships flew through explosions without flinching, their flames burning brighter. The dragons opened their mouths and ate the incoming missiles, consuming the energy and growing larger. Then they struck back. Not with weapons in any conventional sense. The Norse ship released its lightning, a single bolt that branched and split, touching 100 council ships at once. Where it struck, shields simply ceased to exist. Engines went dead. Ships became floating debris. The fireships dove into the fleet formations. They moved between the council vessels like dancers, trailing flame that burned through shields and armor as if they were paper. Each touch left a ship dead in space, its crew unconscious but alive. The dragons were worst of all. They did not just attack, they hunted. Each one picked a target and pursued it relentlessly. Council ships tried to run, but the dragons could fold space around themselves, appearing wherever they wanted. They tore through hulls with claws that cut through matter like it was not there. In less than 10 minutes, the battle was over. 10,000 council ships floated dead in space, not destroyed but disabled. Their crews alive but helpless. The mythological fleet had not lost a single vessel. They had barely tried. Sarah stared at the displays, her mind struggling to accept what she had just witnessed. These beings did not follow the laws of physics. They rewrote them. They were not using technology. They were technology, or something beyond it, and they claimed to be humanity's creation, humanity's servants. If that was true, then what had humans once been capable of? The Council Fleet commander broadcast his surrender within minutes. His voice shook with fear as he spoke. "We yield. Please, do not destroy us. We were following orders." Odin's response was calm. "We do not make war on the helpless. Your ships will be released once we ensure Earth's safety. Your crews will be returned unharmed. But understand this, Earth is under our protection now. Any who threaten it will face our wrath." Sarah requested a meeting. To her surprise, Odin agreed. A small shuttle left the Norse ship and docked with the station. When the airlock opened, Sarah saw him for the first time in person. He was tall, easily 8 feet, with a presence that filled the room. His armor seemed to be made of captured lightning. One eye was covered by a patch, but the other glowed with power. He looked old and young at the same time, as if age had no meaning for him. With him came others. Athena, who looked like a Greek statue come to life, her eyes filled with wisdom that hurt to meet. Thor, carrying a hammer that crackled with energy. Beings from every mythology Sarah had ever studied. Egyptian, Hindu, Chinese, African, Native American. They were all here. Odin spoke first. "You want answers. I will give them. 50,000 years ago, humanity reached a level of advancement that few species ever achieve. You did not just travel the stars, you shaped them, created life, bent reality to your will." Athena continued. "Your ancestors created us, some through technology, some through genetic engineering, others through methods that blurred the line between science and something beyond it. We were designed to protect humanity, to serve as guardians and warriors." But something went wrong, Marcus said. He had been quietly accessing the ancient databases they had recovered. The texts speak of a great war, not with aliens, but among humans themselves. Odin nodded grimly. Yes, power corrupts even the most noble. Humanity split into factions. Each created their own guardians, their own weapons. The war that followed nearly destroyed the galaxy. Stars died. Entire sectors of space were rendered lifeless. Reality itself began to break down. Sarah felt sick. "What stopped it?" "Your ancestors did," Athena said softly. "In their darkest hour they found wisdom. The surviving leaders came together and made a choice. They chose to forget, to give up their power voluntarily." She gestured to a holographic display that appeared in the air. It showed humans, but not like any Sarah had seen. These beings glowed with power. Their forms seemed to exist in multiple dimensions at once. They looked like gods themselves. "They created a genetic lock," Athena explained. "Something that would reset humanity to a baseline state. Make you forget what you had been. Make you start over, slowly, with the hope that if you climbed back to greatness, you would do so with wisdom earned through struggle. And us," Odin added, "they bound with a compact. We would be exiled beyond reality itself, sent to a place outside normal space and time. But the compact had a failsafe. If humanity ever faced extinction, The genetic locks would trigger, ancient sites would activate, the void would shimmer, and we would return. The council vote, Sarah whispered. The annexation. That was the trigger. Yes, Athena confirmed. Your species faced elimination, not physically, but culturally. You would have ceased to be truly human. The failsafe activated. Marcus was still reading through the ancient files. His face went pale. Sarah, there is more. The genetic locks are not just about memory. They are also about power. Every human carries the potential of your ancestors. That power is locked away, but it is starting to open. Sarah looked at her hands. They seemed normal. But as she focused, she saw tiny sparks of light dancing across her skin. What is happening to us? You are waking up, Odin said. Slowly, carefully. Not the overwhelming power of your ancestors, but a fraction of it. Enough to make you more than you were. The question is, what will you do with it? Before anyone could answer, alarms blared again. But these were different. Not warnings of an attack, but of something far worse. The sensors were detecting new breaches in space, larger than the ones that brought the mythological fleet. Odin's expression darkened. They are here. The reason your ancestors created us in the first place. Who? Sarah demanded. The Devourers, Athena said, her voice filled with ancient dread. Beings from outside reality. They exist to consume. When your ancestors bent reality too far, they opened a door. The Devourers began to enter our universe. That is what started the war. That is what forced humanity to make their terrible choice. Through the observation windows, Sarah saw them emerging. They did not have a fixed form. They were darkness that moved, shapes that hurt the mind to perceive. They touched disabled council ships, and those vessels simply ceased to exist, not destroyed, unmade, returned to the nothing from which all matter came. Your return opened the door again, Sarah realized with horror. Yes, Odin confirmed. The compact was not just about protecting you, it was about keeping them out. Now that we have returned, they can follow. The war begins anew, but this time you must choose. Will you reclaim your power? Will you stand with us, or will you remain as you are and hope we can protect you? The decision did not come easily. Sarah called an emergency meeting with every human leader she could reach. The holographic conference room filled with presidents, prime ministers, and representatives from every nation and colony. The debate raged for hours. Some wanted to accept the power, to reclaim humanity's ancient glory. Others feared becoming monsters like their ancestors had. A few argued they should remain as they were, and trust the mythological beings to protect them. It was Marcus who found the final piece of the puzzle. Deep in the ancient databases, he discovered a message. The last words of the humans who had chosen to forget. Sarah read it aloud to the assembled leaders. To our children, countless generations hence. If you are reading this, the failsafe has triggered. You face the same choice we did. Power, peace, dominance, or compassion. We chose to step back to become less, so that you might have the chance to become more. We were powerful, yes, but we were not wise. We had technology beyond imagination, but we lacked the one thing that mattered most. We did not know how to use our power for anything but our own glory. We were gods who acted like children, so we chose to learn, to experience weakness, to understand suffering and hope and the value of simple kindness. We chose to be human in the truest sense, so that if we ever rose again, we might do so with hearts capable of compassion. The power we give you is not the overwhelming might we once wielded. It is a fraction, carefully measured, enough to defend but not to dominate, enough to protect but not to destroy. Use it wisely. Use it with love, and remember that being human means choosing to be kind when you have the power to be cruel. Silence filled the conference room when Sarah finished reading. Then one by one the leaders began to vote. The decision was not unanimous, but it was clear. Humanity would accept their heritage, but they would do it on their own terms. Sarah stood before Odin and Athena. We accept, but not as you were. We will not recreate the empire. We will not rule the galaxy. We will protect it. With you as partners, not as masters and servants. Odin smiled for the first time. It was a fierce smile, full of pride. That is the answer your ancestors hoped for. Then let us begin. The process was not quick. Volunteers came forward from across human space. Military personnel, scientists, ordinary people who wanted to help. Each one underwent a bonding process with one of the mythological entities. Sarah was among them. She bonded with an entity that had been called many names: Sekhmet, Durga, Athena, a being of wisdom and war combined. The process was painful and transcendent at the same time. She felt power flow into her, but also knowledge, understanding, compassion. When it was done, she opened her eyes and saw the world differently. She could perceive dimensions she had never known existed, feel the flow of energy through space, understand languages she had never learned. But she was still herself, still Sarah, just more. Together, the hybrid warriors turned to face the Devourers. The battle that followed would become legend. Not because humanity dominated, but because they fought with purpose beyond mere survival. The Devourers were powerful. They unmade matter with a touch. They existed partially outside reality, making them nearly impossible to hurt. But the bonded humans fought with something the Devourers had never encountered before: hope. Not hope for victory, but hope for a better future. Hope for peace, hope for understanding. That hope became a weapon. It stabilized reality around them, created barriers the Devourers could not cross. Slowly, inch by inch, the tide turned. Not through destruction, but through restoration. The humans did not kill the Devourers. They pushed them back, closed the breaches, sealed the doors between realities. It took weeks. The fighting was desperate and terrible. But in the end, the last breach closed. The void stopped shimmering. Reality stabilized. The Devourers were gone, trapped once again outside the universe. The Galactic Council, watching from their disabled ships, had witnessed everything. When Sarah addressed them, her voice carried across every frequency with power, but also with gentleness. You mocked our myths. You called us primitive. But our stories were not lies. They were memories, warnings, lessons learned at terrible cost. We are the children of the First Empire, but we will not repeat their mistakes. We offer you a new compact, not of dominance but of partnership. We will protect this galaxy together. We will share our knowledge. We will learn from each other. But know this: any who threaten innocent life, any who seek to conquer or oppress, will face us, not as tyrants but as guardians. The Corinthian Council leader, his pride shattered but his wisdom intact, bowed his head. We accept. And we apologize. We judged what we did not understand. In the months that followed, a new order emerged. The Galactic Council reformed, this time with humans as equal partners. The mythological entities became teachers and protectors, working alongside their bonded human companions. Ancient human sites across the galaxy were rediscovered. Ruins that showed the heights the First Empire had reached, but also monuments to their fall. Reminders of what happened when power was not balanced by wisdom. Sarah stood once more at the observation deck of Earth's orbital station. Marcus joined her, himself now bonded with an entity of knowledge and discovery. Together they watched the stars. Do you think we will do better than our ancestors? Marcus asked. Sarah smiled. I think we have something they lost. We remember what it means to struggle, to fail, to need help. We have walked in darkness, so we know the value of light. That gives me hope. Outside the window, hybrid human entity ships patrolled the void, not as conquerors but as guardians. They moved with grace and power, ready to defend against any threat. The void was stable now. The breaches sealed, but humanity remained vigilant. They knew the Devourers were not gone forever. Someday they would try to return. And when that day came, humanity would be ready, not as gods, not as tyrants, but as humans who had learned that the greatest power was not the strength to destroy, but the wisdom to protect. They had been mocked for their myths. Now those myths walked beside them, partners in a galaxy that would never again underestimate the children of Earth. Humanity had remembered, and this time they would do better.